She thought humans were weak until he lifted the star. Fortress Commander Zara of the Vorthak Empire watched the human prisoner with barely concealed disgust. The small pink creature sat chained in her detention cell looking pathetically fragile, compared to her own 7-foot frame of crystalline armor and razor-sharp claws. How these soft beings had managed to survive in space was beyond her understanding. The human called himself Jake Miller and claimed to be some sort of engineer from a place called Earth. Zara had never heard of this backwater planet, but intelligence reports suggested it was recently discovered and barely worth conquering. The humans possessed no advanced weapons, no energy shields, and apparently needed artificial atmosphere to survive. Such weakness. "Tell me about your defenses, human," Zara demanded as she entered the cell. Her voice echoed with the metallic ring of her species' vocal cords. "My fleet approaches your world, and I wish to know what pathetic resistance we might encounter." Jake looked up at her with those strange blue eyes humans possessed so differently from her own multifaceted vision organs. "You really don't want to attack Earth," he said quietly. "We may look weak to you, but appearances can be deceiving." Zara laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Deceiving indeed. Your people cannot even breathe our atmosphere without mechanical assistance. You have no natural armor, no claws, no ability to digest most galactic food sources. You are the weakest species we have ever encountered, maybe," Jake said, "but we're also the most stubborn." 3 days later, Zara's massive dreadnought fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. The human homeworld hung before them, a blue marble that looked as fragile as its inhabitants. Initial scans confirmed their intelligence reports. Earth possessed primitive nuclear weapons, some basic space stations, and a handful of ships that barely qualified as military vessels. "Begin the bombardment," Zara ordered from her command throne. "Target their major population centers first. We shall make an example of this world." But as her weapons charged, something unexpected happened. The space around Earth began to shimmer and twist. Reality itself seemed to bend as massive objects began materializing from seemingly empty void. Ancient-looking structures the size of small moons appeared in perfect formation around the planet. Each one bristled with weapon systems that made Zara's dreadnoughts look like toys. "Impossible," she whispered. "Our sensors detected nothing." On the main screen, Jake Miller's face appeared broadcast from the planet's surface. He no longer looked like the frightened prisoner she had captured. "I tried to warn you, Commander. The thing about humans is we've been preparing for this day for a very long time. We just hide our preparations really, really well." Zara stared as more impossible things began happening. The small human ships she had dismissed as primitive suddenly split apart, revealing that each one had been concealing dozens of advanced fighters. The space stations expanded like mechanical flowers, blooming each section, revealing weapons that should not have existed on such a primitive world. "You see, Commander," Jake continued, "humans learned long ago that the galaxy is a dangerous place. We've been visited by other species before. You're not the first to underestimate us, and you won't be the last. The difference is we learn from every encounter." One of Zara's tactical officers, a 6-armed creature called Thox, turned to her with all his eyes wide. "Commander, these energy readings are off our charts. Those structures, they're not just weapons platforms. They're generating gravitational fields, strong enough to affect our ship's retreat." Zara ordered, but found that her fleet could no longer move. The mysterious human structures had created some kind of gravity well that held her massive ships as easily as insects in amber on screen. Jake smiled. "Oh, and one more thing about humans, Commander. We really don't like bullies." What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as the most one-sided space battle ever recorded. The human weapons didn't just destroy Zara's ships, they systematically disabled them with surgical precision. Each dreadnought found its weapon systems neutralized, its engines shut down, its life support maintained, but its ability to fight completely removed. Within an hour, the pride of the Vorthak Empire hung helpless in space. Jake's voice came over the communications again. "Now, Commander, I'm going to show you something that might change your perspective about human weakness. Please direct your sensors to coordinates 77 Mark IV. Zara complied more, out of shock than obedience. Her sensors focused on empty space near one of the larger human structures. At first she saw nothing, Then her detection equipment began picking up massive gravitational distortions. "What you're looking at," Jake explained, "is a human lifting something rather heavy." The space began to ripple and bend. A massive object began to materialize, something so large that Zara's mind initially refused to process it. It was a fortress, a star fortress, one of the legendary ancient structures that had been lost to time. These massive installations were said to be able to destroy entire solar systems and were considered myths by most galactic civilizations. But there it was emerging from some kind of dimensional storage as a single human somehow manipulated gravitational forces to move an object that massed more than most planets. "Impossible," Zara whispered. "The energy requirements alone. Nothing could generate that much power." "Ah," Jake said. "But you're thinking about this wrong, Commander. You assume we generate the power ourselves, but humans figured out long ago that the universe is full of energy. You just have to know how to borrow it." Zara watched in terror as the star fortress settled into position above Earth. The human Jake had somehow moved an object that should have required the combined fleets of 100 civilizations to even budge. He had done it alone, using technology that defied everything she understood about physics. "How?" she whispered. "Practice," Jake replied simply. "Lots and lots of practice. You see, Commander, when humans first reached space, we met some very unfriendly neighbors. They taught us that the galaxy doesn't care about fair fights or moral victories. It only respects strength. So we got strong. Really, really strong." The implications began to sink in. If humans could move star fortresses, if they could hide technology, this advanced, if they could generate gravitational fields at will, then everything the Vorthak Empire thought they knew about galactic power was wrong. "What do you want?" Zara asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Nothing complicated." Jake said, "We want to be left alone. We want to explore the galaxy in peace, and we want bullies like you to find other hobbies. Your fleet will be escorted to the edge of our space. Your weapons will remain disabled until you're safely away, and you'll carry a message back to your empire." "What message?" Jake's expression grew serious. "Tell them that Earth remembers every species that has threatened us. Tell them that we've spent centuries preparing for wars we hoped would never come. And tell them that human weakness is the most dangerous illusion in the galaxy." As Zara's disabled fleet was gently but firmly pushed out of the Sol system, she found herself thinking about everything she had believed about strength and weakness. The humans looked fragile. Yes, but they had built weapons that could reshape reality itself. They seemed primitive, but they had mastered technologies that her empire couldn't even comprehend. Most disturbing of all, they had done it quietly, without boasting or threats or demands for recognition. They had simply prepared and waited. Back in her damaged command center, Zara began composing her report to the Vorthak High Command. How could she explain that the weakest-looking species in the galaxy was actually the strongest? How could she make them understand that human fragility was camouflage for capabilities that defied belief? She looked at the detention cell where Jake Miller had been held. 3 days ago, she had seen a helpless prisoner. Now she realized she had been looking at a representative of a species that could move star fortresses with their bare hands. The universe suddenly seemed a much more dangerous place. But as her ship limped toward home, Zara found herself feeling something unexpected. Respect. The humans had defeated her utterly, but they had done so without unnecessary cruelty. They had disabled her fleet instead of destroying it. They had shown mercy when they could have shown annihilation. Perhaps there was more to learn from these strange creatures than she had initially thought. Perhaps weakness and strength were not what they seemed. And perhaps the galaxy was about to discover that the most dangerous beings in the universe were the ones who looked harmless, right up until the moment they moved your star fortress.